All right. Hi, Lorna, and welcome to season 3 of Zarah Wendy, the podcast.
Thank you, Wendy, for having me today. It's an honor to be here.
Wow. No, it's really my honor. And also I want to say I wasn't so sure about doing a third season, and it all happened very quickly. Been off the podcast for a bit, and kind of not having any attachments to whether to continue or not. And then when I did my meditation this morning with Hape, all of a sudden like a bunch of people showed up and they were like, they need to be on your podcast. You need to do season 3. These stories need to be shared. And so you and I have known each other for a couple of years now already, and you have such an extraordinary story of just resilience and I hate to use these words like grit because I feel like they're overused, but just an empowering story of forgiveness and faith and just vulnerability and humanity and love. And I feel so privileged that you shared your story with me. Thank you for your trust. And when I reached out to you earlier today, I had no expectations whether or not you would be ready to share this story with everyone. And when you said yes without hesitation, I was just like, wow, so much gratitude, so much love. So before we jump into this very, very exciting story about how actually it plays a role in how we met, how you ended up moving to Cebu where we met, which is a town in central Philippines for those who aren't familiar with it. Do you want to give us a short background about you and where you're from and what you do?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, a little backstory here before we dive into the life lessons on forgiveness. And so 2016, I ended up in Cebu because of then I would consider tragic event, but it was for me a transformative event in so many ways. I had quite an eye-opening experience in January of 2016. That was the last place I imagined myself to be in. And for those of you who I've shared this to, obviously this is no longer a surprise, but for most people that don't know the story of why I do what I do now is because of this life experience. And I ended up serving 5 months in jail. Okay, so even now,
as jumping right in.
Yeah, we're jumping right in. There's a shock value there for those that wouldn't believe that this ever happened to me. They knew me from my previous workplace. It was really not to be expected. You know what I mean? Like people have this picture of me leading an almost straight path in life, and that's how structured I was. And along with that was an experience that really brought out my unpreparedness, for big responsibilities.
Sorry, Lorna, sorry to interrupt you, but because you really like put that word out there, like you were in jail for 5 months, right? So I thought we were going to build up to that, but just for people who are like coming in from maybe different countries, and I know we have an audience all over the world. Let's backtrack a bit and like maybe can you describe your life, like a day in your life in 2015, for example, like a year before this all went down.
This all happened.
Yeah. Just to give a context, like,
okay.
Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm originally from Manila. Before coming to Cebu, I was born and raised in Manila. I went to engineering school, started working. I was 17. I was really focused on work and building a career for myself. And that was my single focus, is to make it big in the corporate world. I really worked hard. And if there's one thing, I wasn't really the brilliant one that came up with all the brilliant ideas, but I was a hard worker. I was a worker bee. So I was willing to put in time and energy into anything I chose to give my energy to. And so fast forward, so that was 1993 when I started. And in 2015, after serving corporate for 15 years, I decided I could go off, do consulting work and be part-time freelance consulting here, but not a full-time corporate job. So I found myself back in Cavite where my parents were, and I was working from home as early as 2003. So I'm not new to the work from home setup. I could literally work from anywhere where there's internet. I'm in the digital space. It was an adjustment because when we moved out, I was 18, and moving back in 15 years later there's an adjustment there. I had to channel all my focus to work after my dad passed on. And so I lived for a while at my cousin's place, 15 minutes away from the house. Family adjustments, mom moved back home. And so it was just shaky situation. I didn't know where my foot, I barely had my footing. So January of 2016, right after New Year, so just one regular Saturday afternoon, post New Year celebration, enjoying all the leftovers and stuff. At that time, I was taking care of my nephew, and my nephew was 6 going 7, 6 years old, and they had a altercation. Okay, so kids quarrel. Me being that sensitive and sensitive with the situation that we were living with my cousins, it didn't sit well with me that the child I was asked to take care of, my sister's adopted son, couldn't behave, right? So that was how I perceived it. I could not be the parent that was expected to instill discipline. And so reactions and emotions, uncontrolled. So I ended up instilling the discipline that I grew up with. Hitting a child is a no-no. You can't hit a child. Okay. And so the next thing I know, that Saturday afternoon, I was summoned. Okay. Apparently I got reported to the local barangay, right? It's the local government in charge of the community. And so I showed up, wanting to explain. And then, how it is when things just happen too fast. Before you could even blink, I was detained. So I didn't know what was going on. I was just going with the flow, as they say. When they said jump in the car. When they put handcuffs, put in handcuffs. So I didn't put up any fight. And so I was more in shock than anything. So that's why I jumped right in and said, I ended up in jail, because to me that was the start. The backstory that led to that is really something that I would rather not bring out again, because it's really not relevant now to go back to the little details. But I was charged with something that, would likely not be bailable. So I wasn't expecting to get out of jail.
So what was the charge?
The charge was illegal detention. Okay, so
it wasn't even.
It wasn't child abuse or anything.
Yeah, it was illegal detention. Yeah. So just to, without again going into the details, because I know how uncomfortable it is, you were minding your sister's adopted son, 6-year-old, whom you called your nephew, and then he was exhibiting some unruly behavior, which you tried to instill some discipline on him, and ended up being reported went to explain to the local government unit and ended up in handcuffs,
Yes.
charged with illegal detention. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So apparently, the complainant was the child's father, biological father. They didn't know what they were signing. They couldn't read and couldn't write. So when they were made to sign a document, they just went ahead and did it, with the understanding that they'll be given financial support if they sign this document. And they didn't, and this is one of the key things that really highlighted for me the importance of compassion, and forgiveness, even if you're in the, losing position. If you look at it from that perspective, they didn't know what they were doing, and so I ended up in detention before they could even retract, because they were wanting to retract the statement, the document that they signed. But just when you hope things would move along pretty slowly, it moves quickly. That's when you expect things to go, slower than that. That's when it happens all too quickly. So even if they wanted to retract their statement and was profusely apologetic, they didn't understand what they signed, it was too late. So we had to go through the entire process. And, I understand the legal process is not perfect. If it were up to me, there would be due process where you heard both sides instead of just assuming guilt,
So did at any moment were you able to call a lawyer or something?
Yes. It happened on a weekend, so we had to stay the weekend at least. That's what the Monday following that whole incident was when we first met with the lawyer, and we were given filing, arraignment and all these things. It wasn't about to happen until a week or 2 weeks later. Okay, that was how slow the process was. So you really had to wait it out. So minimum 10 days or 2 weeks, or maximum 14 days or 15 days or 3 weeks. But then, the process was that it took so long. Court hearings were postponed, and we had to wait another month. It's really not an exact predictable pacing. There's the slow process, and then there's the quick process.
There's the glacially slow process as well.
Yeah, that's the perfect.
It's just amazing how I've heard this story several times before, and each time I hear it, I have more questions and I have more emotions that come up. But just to clarify again, so the father of the child signed this document without knowing what he was signing. Do you know who made him sign this document? Did you guys ever find out?
Well, I just heard it from the grapevine. We never really had to pursue who made him sign, but it was somebody from the local barangay.
Did that person have any interest in having you?
No, we were not a political family.
Right.
We don't have any inclination to go political with anyone at all. Looking back, I think it was just power play, and somebody wanted to up somebody else with slap him with okay, let's see who's more powerful kind of thing.
And so did you ever get a chance to speak to the father again?
Oh yeah, on the Saturday night when they took me, they were there because they were the complainants, right? And they were apologizing because they didn't know it but like I said, we were both apologizing. I wasn't prepared to take care of a child. I came from a good place. That's all I knew, right? So knowing that, I faced them right before they said, we're sorry. We didn't know what we were signing. They would not let us retract our statement anymore. I already said, this is happening for a reason, not to justify what I did, because I love your son like he was my own, and I wouldn't wish him harm. He's been with us 6 years, and I wouldn't do something that will put him in danger or something like that. And they understood that. So right before I was detained or locked up, there was forgiveness already. So, the following week when we were allowed to take visitors, to see visitors, they were there. They would come visit me, and there really wasn't any long-standing hatred or I don't want to talk to you situation. So I understood where they were coming from as biological parents.
So at no moment did you blame them for you ending up for 5 months detained?
Yeah, there was a question. And sometimes that feeling would arise in me, like, why did I have to be the one to suffer this? There was the question more than the blaming, because I was an adult. I didn't exercise my best judgment at the time. Okay, but there's also no point in me blaming myself for what I did the best I could under the circumstances, but it ended up being the wrong thing to do. But I came back to this self-realization that I can spend each day in jail blaming myself or blaming others. That's not going to help. So that's when it hit me, the one day at a time saying, take things one day at a time, because that's really all you can do. It was difficult. Oh, for sure. It was. I wasn't prepared for the scenes that I witnessed in detention, and more so in the big jail, in the big facility. So a detention is like a temporary holding area for when your case is being, waiting for arraignment. But after a few weeks, you have to be moved to the bigger jail as the trial proceeds. We were expecting like 4 court appearances, and that 4 court appearances could be 3 months, 3 months apart, or 1 month apart. So that depends on availability of schedules. So everything was very fluid, and you really, even if you wanted to put it on your own timeline or your own calendar when you'd like to appear in court, that's not up to you. It was out of our hands at the time, and we did what we could to work with a couple of lawyers that helped us out. And it was a non-bailable case. To set the expectations, we were told that the shortest I could expect is 6 years, shortest. Okay, and I would be lucky if I served less than that.
If you were guilty, you mean?
If I were
guilty. Which you were not. You were not guilty of illegal detention.
Right? That remains to be proven at the time, right? So, but they were setting expectations so that we're not like pushing for the eventuality, if it comes down to it, because it's an unbailable case. What can I say?
So how long were you at the detention, and how long were you at the jail? And can you describe maybe the difference and what a typical day was like in each one?
Mm-hmm. Oh, a typical jail in detention is a lot friendlier than what it is in the big jail.
How long were you in the detention?
Out of the 5 months, it's 2.5.
Okay. Oh, so you were half in each. Okay.
Yeah, 2.5.
So what was it like in each place?
Imagine a 20 square meter box with 23, 26 people in it. So we would sleep on the floor. It really was inhuman based on my standards. So, tile floors, yes, but it's too darn cold. It could hurt your back and give you cuffs and stuff like that.
Oh, it was cold.
It was, cold tiled floor. There wasn't any mat or whatnot. You can't. So
no
that's
blankets or anything.
Yeah, it's really up to you to bring your own. They allow in detention. They allow for you to bring your blanket. So we had to wait about 3 days, 4 days for our stuff to be checked and allowed in. A typical day would be waking up at 5:30, and then we would do drills, and then they do a head count at 6:30. And then we pretty much just stay in and fix the place up. By fix the place up, I mean clean, right? So we clean the place twice a day because there's just 26 people in a 26 square meter box is not
hygienic.
Not a lot. Yeah, something like that. It was sorry state when we got there. It was dark, gloomy, and it had writings on the wall. The things you see in the movies. So to brighten things up, it was just a little project to establish a different kind of vibe amongst inmates in the detention center. So we asked for permission to paint the walls pink. So that was an activity, and we cleaned up the toilets and just scrubbed them to like pure white, whatever. So but wow. it was a group activity, and it translated to us building a bond, and that's the least we could do to get people's attention away from feeling sorry for themselves.
And this is an activity that I remember you spearheaded, and that you paid for from your own pocket.
With help from family, because they also bought sleeping mats, friends who came to visit. I knew that it was just a matter of time until the verdict comes down, right? But I know that whatever the conclusion was going to be, there was already forgiveness on both parties. It was we just had to respect the legal process. So while waiting, I felt, okay, let's make productive use of your time here, Lorna. Okay, so the jail guards were very friendly. What else can they do? That's their job, to make sure that we were, complying with everything, right? So I ended up offering training to digitize files. So I gave training to the jail guard. That's something I knew how to do and how to make productive use of my time. So I asked the warden if he would allow me to help out in that area. And then they asked me, what are you doing here? You're not fit here. Well, I said life has a way of teaching us lessons here and there, and that's why I'm here. So I don't know what will come out of this yet. So 2.5 months into that, you conduct training, and then I was surrounded by women. And what can you do but sit and listen to their stories and give them an ear to listen? And
so, can you tell us about the jail, your experience in the bigger jail?
Oh yeah, wow! I thought I was not gonna get to that place. Yeah. I thought case was gonna be over before I even got there. You know how in the movies they would paint an initiation, so that was part of it. So, and I was fasting for 2 weeks before that fateful day of being transferred, but that day came, and so when I got there, I wasn't prepared to be drilled and asked to do strenuous stuff.
Wait, what do you mean you were fasting for 2 weeks? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I was, my heart wasn't ready to be transferred, and I was praying that I be ready for whatever the decision is going to be. Fasting just helped me clear my thoughts and my worry and my anxiety.
Is that something you'd done in the past, like fasting to prepare for a difficult moment, or is it something that came to you at that moment?
We practiced fasting at least twice a year for a week. That's a practice.
In your religion? You mean in your religion?
Yes, in Christian, practice.
So when you say fasting, was it just water, or was it just one meal, or was it just
water? Just water.
So you just had water for 2 weeks?
Yeah, just water.
So your body was very weak, right?
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for a strenuous.
And so you had to, the initiation or the hazing you're talking about was a physical.
Yes.
Physical one.
So they made us do the exercises. They call it the pumping exercise, where you nearly squat like a duck squat, and then you stand up for 200 times.
Like that.
You'll be holding like this.
Okay.
And then you do squats.
200
stand up
squats.
and then squats, and then tiptoe, right? So you had to have a strong muscle.
When you say we, is like all the newcomers have to do that pretty much?
Yes. Or? Yes. And then they made you do that 200 times or something like that. So it was too much. Both my knees gave in. I heard a pop. And then, a few pops later, the other knee gave in. And I could not stand up. I was like a jello. And they had to literally carry me. You'd think that this situation, Wendy, was bad enough that I got transferred. Well, apparently I'm not just locked up. I still could not walk. So I was I was seated most of the time, and in my heart just overflowed with gratitude to the inmates. So this time it was a 50 square meter cell with 60 people in it. But it was like designed so everyone gets to sit down next to each other in 3 stories.
How long did you lose the function of your legs? How long were you?
2.5. So I could not walk for almost 2 months.
Oh, so the whole time you were in jail, you couldn't walk?
Yes. And they had to, and that's where my mission was born, because my mission to help inmates, that is, because they were, helping give me a bath, bring me to the toilet in the wee hours of the morning if I needed to go. And we didn't have luxury to use, as unlimited supply of water. We were given 5 gallons, maximum 8 gallons a day to take care of your business. That's it. That's all you get. Right. So 8 gallons of water. You need to brush your teeth with it, wash your hair, take a shower, whatever. And you're only allotted maximum 5 minutes to do everything. So I don't know, but these women just made sure I was taken care of, and they were.
Are you still in touch with some of them?
For a while, because they were allowed to use cell phones once a week, and they could text anyone they like. But
so none of them are out yet, or?
I've lost touch. I've heard from a couple that have already been released. They connected.
Lorna, this was 2016, right?
Yes.
2016.
It's been 6 years. 5 years.
So now that you can look back, what do you think? Why do you think this all happened? Like, you said earlier there was a lesson there in hindsight. Like, why do you think this happened to you? How did it change your life?
It's a great question. The why. I could assign meaning to that experience. I just look at it from this point of view, Wendy, that our path, my path, at least I could speak for myself, my path to being my best self is not a straight line. Why this happened to me, it taught me humility. It taught me not to judge others, because prior to this experience, I had my own judgments about people who ended up in jail. They're bad people, that's why they're there. They deserve this. So it was programmed in my head that you would never see me near a place like that, because I was full of judgment. But it gave me a firsthand experience that these people aren't bad. They made wrong decisions, sure, but I have no right to say they're a bad person. Some of them didn't know any better. Some of them knew better, but decided to make a wrong, choice anyway. So, but everything is relative based on, if you're looking at it from a legal standpoint, they violated laws, right? When you look at it, when you hear these people's stories, they were in an environment that did not inform them of what other options there are for them, and it's really what they know. So it's like, are we going to expect them to see things from this perspective when all they've known is this, right? So I got firsthand exposure to that. no, it's not because they're bad. They made bad choices, but they're not bad people, because these are the most selfless people that I've met. Okay. And maybe that's because they've been in jail before I was, and they've gone through some introspection on their own. I don't know. But my experience with these people is that they're just like me. They have struggles, they have family issues, they have personal, issues that they're struggling with that they don't know how to handle. So it manifests in different ways and forms based on actions they've done. So that's what the big lesson for me is, not to judge and to be compassionate towards others. Most of them are there because of drug-related issues. And most of them do it for the reason that they wanted to provide for the family. It's wrong, but we can say that a mom who's running drugs is a bad mom because she chose to sell drugs to to provide for her kids, or 6 kids or whatever. So, and that's she didn't have the education, she didn't have access to support. Again, so you can ping pong the who's to blame, who's to, right? So with compassion, it just stops. Like, what can I do to extend help to this person? Because clearly, some of them are willing to be helped. They just aren't given the access to support they need.
Oh, that's such those are big life lessons for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to jump ahead. So eventually, they found out that it was everything was a big mistake, and you were eventually released. What did you feel then, and how were you able to, readapt?
So the case was dismissed. Nobody appeared in court to just support their claim. It's just, we were just there to go through with the whole process. So when the verdict came, we were asked to leave. We stayed overnight because apparently the court clerk got tired of signing papers. So she said, can you come back tomorrow for this? My hands are tired. So have them stay another night. So that was the last, my cousin was ready to explode. And it's a good thing my sister was there to say, just let them stay another night. They've been there 5 months. What's another day, another night, right? So anyway, so I got home. It was a big adjustment, Wendy, because 5 months, you'd think not a lot can happen in 5 months, but when you're locked up, you get used to the restriction. It's like you're a bird put in a cage, and the 5 months would teach you can no longer fly. So when we were released, I remember not wanting to get out of the room, my room, that is. So we were in Cebu a week after I got released. I got released May of 29, but I technically got out May 30th. So June 7th, I was in Cebu. I remember not wanting to get out of the room. And I was content to just be seated in the corner of the bed, not even the entire bed. So I'm so used to having occupying this little space, tiny space in a room. I didn't want to interact. And then I had the tendency to hold on to how behind bars. So when somebody visits you, you tend to, hold the rail, the thing. It became a habit fast enough until, my sister called my attention. Hey,
Wait. So what do you mean? What were you holding on to?
It was an automatic, a default. When somebody talks to me, I would do this, like almost.
So you mean imaginary bars?
Imaginary.
Oh my God.
It was trauma that I didn't know how to process yet.
The phantom bars, like the phantom limb.
Yeah. And my sister said, you have to, let's go out, let's have coffee, let's go here, just so you can get some fresh air. And I was more scared of being free than I was being inside. It became a routine for me. It's quite easily in the 5 months. So it was a huge adjustment to be out here in the big world again, and seeing more than a foot of sky. I didn't have a job at the time, but I remember my first week in detention. I wrote to all of my clients, local and abroad, and I told them, like, I had to have at least that intact, my integrity, right? So here's how I fucked up. You can choose to not work with me anymore, but at least I've told you the truth of where I'm at. I'm not missing an action just because I got lazy to report for work. I had to be professional, at least to that extent. I was writing notes and asking my sister to retype it and whatnot. So by the time I got out, and this is how the universe, I believe, has got my back, is because of that experience. Those clients, when they learned that I was released, gave me the first few projects to help me get back on my feet.
And one particular client maybe stands out among the rest.
Oh, you, yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
Can we talk about that?
Yes, on the lighter side. Yeah. So, but yeah, and that's another lesson that I learned, is that you own up to your mistakes. I knew I wasn't perfect. I thought I was, or at least I could work hard to be perfect. But situations in life throw us off course, and you just have to own up to lapses in judgment and honest with it. I mean, this is me, and I'm not the perfect person that I think you'd imagine me to be, and so here I am. Yeah. So
okay. So
yeah.
we'll get back to that one client that I was asking about maybe a bit later. But I want to jump forward to when we met. How long had you been out of jail at that time?
We met in late 2017. So
wow, so it was fresh.
Yeah, it was quite fresh. Yeah. So I was really getting back on my feet when we met.
So I want to say I'm so impressed, because when I met you, you were very professional. I met you once at Connected Women, and then the second time, you were a speaker at these events that you and I were very active at attending and then eventually organizing. And I just found you so poised and eloquent, and like I was really drawn to your energy. You know this, I've told you this before. And now you're saying that it was less than 2 years since you had been released and you were able to overcome that trauma. I'm just amazed by that, actually. So
it's funny you mentioned because I was in a company of women inside the jail, and that gave me reason to support women-led events,
right?
At least to an extent, while they're not visible, they're not actively sending out people to do mission work in the jails. I really was inspired by how women who come together can really be nurturing and can be. It's a transformative experience for me. I saw moms and sisters and all gradients of society. They were there. I saw them. So that was the inspiration behind me joining Connected Women and volunteering to be an ambassador for it here in Cebu, just so we could get women together and really support their dreams or whatever it is, to have an avenue for that. It's empowering for me, and it's healing for me to be able to share what I know and to have that container for women to share what they can. That's the whole Gasho Center journey, me visiting your center here in Cebu.
Yeah, so let's maybe we can talk about that for a little bit. Now you're totally on a different journey, and I can see your chocolate book beside you there, and you're about to become a Reiki master. So can you share a little bit about that journey?
Oh, wow, what a beautiful! Thank you. I've been. All it is that this whole 5 years, where it's like being in the mud. like in the darkest, murkiest mud. And then, there's this whole beautiful experience that's unfolding, that's waiting to happen in my life. And my whole Reiki journey, well, I first started with mindfulness. That was the first, that was a recommendation from you that I start baby steps. So just building up.
No, I mean, I actually hired you to help me with my mindfulness program.
Of course. Yes,
and so you didn't have a choice but to read it, to like get into it.
Yeah, that's true too, because otherwise, what would I be saying? This is all new to me. More than the work itself was your opening the door for me to know more about practicing mindfulness in day to day. Because to me, that was an alien practice.
And yet you were doing it when you were taking one day at a time, and you were already practicing it.
Yes, but I was so unaware. It was
normalized.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, now I'm able to note it as, oh, okay, this is what it is. I was just going with one day at a time, but not setting any intention, but to just get over the day. That's it, as best as you can. So I didn't start my day with an intention to get high, So anyway, so that mindfulness, and then it became a daily meditation practice, a 1-minute meditation. I remember you teaching me a 1-minute meditation, and then it became 3 minutes, and then it built from there. And
now you're meditating more than I do.
Yes. Oh, because I look forward to doing it every day, because it really sets the tone for the rest of my day. The more time I spent with you, the more I got to know about different practices that I could use and learn. And one of them is Reiki. I'm so grateful for that I was able to learn it from you. At first, I was tentative, like, what am I doing? I remember attending one yin yoga session, and you noticed I had a limp, and then I said, yeah, I'm feeling something in my left hip, and then you offered to give me Reiki, and that was, I don't know if you remember this even, but
I do not.
Yeah, there was a relief, like, and going back home, I go, what just happened? It's just this different level of relaxation. Not that I just came from yoga, but the limp, was gone. And so yeah, so when you opened the class for Reiki level 1, it was also something that I wanted to pursue, because again, at that time, I was ready for healing. Not to define it as I need healing, right? But I knew in my heart that there was something that I needed to address. Like, it's more inner than out in my outer world. It was all these trauma built up that I was just trying to suppress and push down. But I knew at some point it was going to resurface. It was haunting me. Sometimes I still get nightmares of what if somebody came after me again? What if they just asked me to go back to the jail, whatever. I had that before I met you. And so I knew that there was trauma there that was waiting, including that whole reaction of holding to invisible phantom bars. Yeah. I knew I was ready for healing when I attended recovery. There was our church had an open, like an agnostic group circle. It's like a 12-step recovery for people who suffered trauma. So anyone can join. It doesn't matter what your faith is or whatnot. So we hosted it here at home. And so we had 12 other women join that. And it was 18 weeks. Okay, 18 weeks of really looking deeper and processing all these responses or reactions that we have on towards events, people, triggers that we have, etc., etc. And this is the same language that I read about in when I study further. You know, this trauma, this healing, these triggers, this recurring patterns. These are all similar terms. And now when I read about it, it's more expansive in that I'm not just forcing myself to heal. It was a gradual process. You know, I knew that it was going to take more than 18 weeks to process, and it was an ongoing thing for me. So I had to commit to a practice that will help me address those triggers. And Reiki is one. And cacao is such a heart opener. I live in my head most of the time. Well, at least before I met you, and I learned how to live with an open heart also to balance, right? So I you know this, I overthink and I create stories in my head. My narrative's always like, what if?
Like most people.
Fear, right? So what if they reject me? What if I end up making a fool of myself? All these stories, just the self-belief that I'm not good enough. You look so ridiculous. Why are you even making yourself do this? You look like a fool, like that. So
the inner critic.
Inner critic is so tough. And the way to do that is through the cacao ceremony. It's a medicine that you introduced also in one of our many sessions. I'm grateful that it's built into my daily routine now. Hello, chocolate. So yeah. So healing, forgiveness, healing, finding peace, and forgiving myself. You know, that really is the full circle for me, is that I'm not going to be immune, you know, reacting negatively towards something, but at least I'm able to catch my thoughts now, and I'm able to be more self, you know, I'm more self-aware now that, hey, I wonder why this is coming up for me. What is this trying to tell me? Not to overanalyze, but let me sit with this for a while. So that whole self-awareness practice, heart being open and living from the heart. And now you've taught me, you know, how powerful our brain is to change the way, you know, we live our lives. So everything is energy, you said, and you've been generously supplying me with content that really helps me expand that appreciation. And what does it mean? And everything is energy. We give off what we have inside. Out of the overflow we give, right? And we're ready to receive. So everything that we need is supplied to us, and that's where my faith is built in now. Fast forward to the 5 years that I had what I need when I was in jail. What I needed was time to pause and time to reframe, you know, my perceptions of people. I was judgmental. I was just not in a forgiving space. But I learned forgiveness because I was forgiven, you know, also. And now looking back, we've never really been strangers with the parents of the child. In fact, my sister just told me she was on the phone with Sam last week.
Sam is the nephew?
Nephew, yes.
Wow, amazing.
When I teach in the jail, I see them as I saw myself at the time. They aren't bad people. They made bad choices. If people were just exercising compassion and kindness like that, sure, justice will be served, right? Or not. But again, that place is not the end. You know, for some of us, or at least for me, jail is something that liberated me from the prison that was my head and the heart that was like locked up. Like, I don't want to show my emotions. I don't want to forgive. I don't want to, right? So the irony of it is like when I was in jail, that was when I set myself slowly, you know, free from all these. You think you're this good. You think you're this perfect. You think you know everything. You think you got your life figured out. Well, guess what? You don't. So, and that to me is the most liberating thing to realize, like getting out of jail. I don't want to be imprisoned by fear, right? So now it's like I don't know what I don't know what I don't know. To acknowledge and accept.
Lorna, thank you so much.